Okay, welcome to this really fun virtual meeting for the library board for February 27th. I'm going to start with attendance. I think we kind of got like a hodgepodge of where people are located today. I'm going to start with everyone that's on the video call first with me. This is Amy Oren. And then we have Hannah on this call too, and then Chris, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Did I miss anybody that's on the web call? Okay. Is there anybody on like the phone patch call? I don't know if that's different than the web call. Anybody via phone?
Well, I'm actually in via phone. This is Chris.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then we're all good. And then I cannot physically see the chamber right now, but who is actually physically there present today?
This is John Rodenbiker.
Wanda Manglecook.
All right.
Paul Jensen.
Okay. Is that everybody?
That is everyone.
Wonderful. All right, let's get started with agenda item number 1. We need approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move approval of the order of the agenda as presented to us.
Yeah, seconded.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? No? All right. Moving to action item number 2. We need approval of the minutes from our January 16th meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion for approval.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. Okay. Moving to number 3. Is there anybody there for public comment today?
No.
No? All right. Then we're moving on to number 4, staff report with Megan. Is Megan there?
Yes, she is.
All right.
All right, my report is in your packet. The first thing I have is a correction that for the teen talkie tasting event, there was only one. There were 2 sessions of the leap year movie and craft, but again, those happened last weekend since our meeting got delayed a week. Some things I want to highlight, since it is a leap year, they're having a special leap year themed storytime and craft this Thursday on the 29th for kids ages 2 to 6. That's at 11 a.m. Now that we have snow back, I can talk about the Iditarod, the dog sled race. This coming Saturday, we have some expert sled builders that are coming to the library to talk all about what it takes to complete the 1,000-mile race across Alaska. It's geared towards kids in elementary school, but people of all ages are welcome. Anybody who wants to learn more about the dog race. The edible landscaping for the Northern Plains happened last night, and we had more than 60 people, which if you have been to the Carlson Community Room, it was very full. Designing to Stop Disaster event was supposed to be tonight, but because of the weather, it's been postponed to April 2nd. That event we're doing in collaboration with the landscape architecture and emergency management departments at NDSU, focusing on how climate change is changing the way that we're building cities. We also have a family-friendly musical event coming up in March. Members of the FM Opera will be at the main library in a low-key environment, and it's free. People are encouraged to bring children to see the power of opera voices close up. And then one last thing to mention, we're still accepting submissions for the library's Northern Narratives Writing Project. We accept fictional stories, nonfiction, and poetry. The deadline is March 31st. And I did bring a copy of last year's Northern Narratives if anybody wants to take a look at what happens to those stories once they get judged after submission. Does anybody have any questions for me?
This is Amy. I was super interested on the event that was happening on Monday, and you were just kind of explaining how full the event was, and there was a lot of people that were interested in it. Do you know if that's something where in like the future are there opportunities to film those so people can go back and visit if they weren't able to attend in person, or like a series option? I just feel like that's kind of becoming a really popular thing for people, and then proving too that there was so much interest in it on Monday. What are your thoughts on that potential?
I will talk to our program person and see if there's a possibility for that in the future. I know at the How to Run for Office event, we had somebody call asking if we were going to be recording that one as well. It's kind of, will have to be depending on the event and if we have outside speakers, depending on what they're comfortable with, but it's definitely something I can talk to our programming people about.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's something we've initially talked about. Sometimes it's the overhead of the stuff and staff time involved, or the availability of city AV staff in regards to that as well, in order to ensure the quality level that we want to maintain. And so those have things been part of the discussion in the past, but certainly something we can revisit.
Okay, nice.
I just one
all right.
question for you. Who do I contact from the energy management faculty? Do you have contact details for them, NDSU?
I don't, but the person that does, I can send them to you.
Would you please? Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Megan at all? No? Okay. I know my daughters are super excited for the sled race people too, because after the toga and the theme of the winter readathon, now they want huskies. It's like a whole thing in our house now. So thank you for that. All right. Now we're on to number 5, director's report.
Yes, everyone has a copy of it per their packet. Doing a lot of quarterly meetings with my folks, very good discussions. If anybody has any other questions related to it.
Okay. Any questions? No? All right. Number 6, we have no unfinished business. We can move right to number 7, new business. We have action items for letter A, confidentiality of library records policy review.
Yeah, this is a good policy that's served us well. Certainly, Paul, if you have you reached out for a question, and so
Yeah.
kind of discuss your thoughts in regards to the draft or the standing policy as it is at the moment.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I read through it. It was all pretty good, with the exception of one little item, which is legislative investigative powers. And that part of it, I'm not so much in agreement with. I don't think that legislative investigative powers should have the right to scrutinize the lending habits of people in our libraries unless they have a valid reason for it, meaning that a judge or some law office has actually expressed interest in identifying specific people related to an offense of some kind that's criminal of nature. But just to have legislative investigative powers involved, I think that's an overreach, and it should be removed from the confidentiality records. And I have, in the meantime, I know it's pretty late, but I did send examples of what other libraries have done around the country, and I've provided that to Tim. So maybe that will be in the copies of the minutes. So anyway, I'm moving that I would like to see that removed, the legislative powers, because it can be abused in so many ways. People should have the right to go to the library and borrow books without the fear of somebody snooping into their records, whether they are studying in vitro fertilization procedures or LGBTQ society. There are people who are interested in that, or everything that is of a conflict nature in society. I don't think the legislative power should have any rights to go in and review those.
To clarify what you would want, then the period for that sentence would stop at the word procedures.
Yeah,
And we would strike out or legislative investigative
that
power.
is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this something where, Tim, do you like go through and explain a little bit more about this and why that wording is the way it is right now for us first?
You know, it's, you know, and I appreciate Paul's thoughts on this. This is a policy that was generated back in the 1997. We've never run into that issue. In the current environment, I think it's a little bit different than it was perhaps in 1997 to a certain degree. Again, that language predates me, and this has been one of those policies that we haven't run into any issues. It just kind of puts up the wall. We haven't had, I would say we've had more instances in the further paragraphs where you're dealing with guardianship and families and that kind of thing and vulnerable individuals. That's more where we've run into application of this policy. I guess in terms of where I am in terms of this conversation, I'm perfectly comfortable with Paul's suggestion in terms of just striking the term legislative investigative power, have the board approve it or however we want to do it, and then obviously run it past city attorney's office, make sure everybody's on the same page. So I guess I don't have a real specific, that's in there because of this specific instance, because we haven't had it. So I'm sorry, I don't have any more explanation than that, but that's kind of where I am in terms of this discussion.
Okay, no, I think that's helpful. So then for us, board members, is there any other discussion or any other thoughts to kind of go along with this specific
I do have some thoughts.
information?
This is John
Okay.
Rodenbiker. I think it's very important that we have a confidentiality policy. It is the right of our patrons to have privacy in how they're using our libraries. And we don't want them to have any chilling effect on that due to spurious investigations. When I read this, my interpretation of this was that it is regarding official processes or subpoenas from the legislature using their investigative power. I do believe the legislature does have subpoena power, and that this language was recognizing that. And that we're not, with this policy, allowing for any given legislator to, on their whim, inquire about any particular patron's use of the libraries. I believe this is just recognizing that the legislature does have that power to subpoena. And that might be a case where we would, as a library, have to deliver those materials.
Absolutely, but then that subpoena would also come with a supportive argumentation for why they would want to do it and why they would have to name individuals.
Yes.
That's where the difference lays. And this thing about naming individuals or patrons who have been to the library borrowing certain books, unless we're talking about some form of a criminal action, no, I don't think that should be public information.
And I'm not disagreeing with you.
Good. So we're in agreement.
Yes.
That's good.
But this is Chris. I'm thinking that even if those 4 words were removed, that the subpoena would still override whether or not those words were in this policy. Would that be correct?
I would think so. I think, government agency except pursuant to such process, order, or subpoenas. That, obviously, government agency is a pretty broad terminology, but then names subpoenas as the vehicle for access, if that makes sense.
It does, because even, like I said, even if we removed those words, the subpoena is still the vehicle to get into records.
That's right.
Correct.
So the objective of this, this comment here is to simply just not allow willy-nilly investigations into people's library borrowing history. But yeah, if there's a subpoena being issued, that's a different story altogether. They would have some real motivation for it. They would probably have presented it to some judge and then gone from there. And I don't have a problem with that. Not at all. Let's call this a preemptive change in order to stem potential attacks on individuals or vulnerable groups of people in our society. Thank you.
So where do we feel like we're kind of sitting with this then? Are we looking at just removing those last couple of words and revisiting this either our next meeting or Tim, how do we kind of move forward with this one? There's lots of discussion.
I think you have two primary options. One is to approve the changes of the removal of the words of or legislative investigative power, or table any more action on this policy until next month. And I go back to the city attorney's office and say, here, let's relate the conversation that happened at the board. What are their thoughts in terms of this language per that conversation? And again, where I am is I feel good about just putting the period at the end of procedures and then just running it, and have the board approve it and then run it past city attorney's office. And if they're okay, then everybody's okay. And I think like the first language, identifying government agency and subpoenas, I think we're covered in that regard.
Okay.
So just a point of order question, Board Member Jensen, I believe you did make a motion to adjust language of this, and so we would, President Orrin, we want a second and then vote on that and take action on that.
I do motion that we approve this text, but with the removal of the legislative investigative power, putting a full stop after procedures. Do I have a second?
Is there a second? Sorry. Did
I'll
somebody
second.
second that? Okay.
I will second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Okay. All in favor of the removal, say aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. Okay. Motion passes. So it sounds like we're just going to get this updated and then it should be good to go, right, Tim? It doesn't have to come back to us.
I'll run it past city attorney's office just for due diligence, and I think we'll be okay and kind of go from there.
Okay. Great discussion on this one. That we haven't had like a lot of good chatty back and forth in a while. So, all right, we're moving on to letter B, interlibrary loan policy review. Tim, do you want to guide us through this?
Obviously, interlibrary loan is a key aspect of service for the community. And again, I think the big one here is because it's a labor-intensive, time-intensive kind of thing. We limit it to City of Fargo residents because they're the supporters of the Fargo Public Library. We're happy to do it. I think it's good to set the, kind of the parameters of the service, which is always good. I think it's served us very well, and it's always good to get it reviewed.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion for approval for this one?
I would move approval of the policy as presented.
I'll second that.
Second.
No, you do that.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Is there any discussion for this? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right, motion passes for this one. And moving on to letter C, outreach policy review.
Yes, outreach services. Again, another tremendously important service that we do for the community. And I always take a moment to just review this, just how proud we are of the volunteers and all the work that they do for our outreach team and the work of our outreach team. They do a tremendous job. They were actually taking items out to locations today. That's how dedicated those people are. It's tremendous. And so, yeah, all the kudos to them. And again, anytime it's a public service, it's good to have a little policy that kind of puts it in the parameters, but we're happy with it.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval for this one?
I'll move approval of the outreach services policy as presented.
Okay. Is there a second?
Hannah James will second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion at all for the outreach services policy? No? All right. All in favor? Say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Okay. Moving on to our number 8, the statistical reports.
Yeah, looking at usage on the first page, you're looking at attendance. That's looking good again. In terms of program attendance, I would point out one, the virtual passive children's, you can see an attendance of 1,050. And what that was is we have a scavenger hunt, and they make a count of that every 3 months. So that represents like 3 months worth of participation for the scavenger hunt, not just strictly the month of January, but we certainly want to count that activity. So it really looks good for January, but it was 3 months of activity and attendance over that. And I guess the scavenger hunt is very popular, and we keep it going throughout the year, but every 3 months we do a count up of the attendance in that regard. Overall,
My kids love the scavenger hunt so much. Like, I need to go earlier now to the library because even if it's a quick book pickup, like, they have to do it. So, love the addition. It's awesome.
absolutely, absolutely. Volunteer hours, you see that. Internet sign up 18%. Electronic activity up. In terms of circulation comparison with January of last year, almost 14% increase over last year. And again, is what is exciting, really driven by e-content usage. For the third month in a row, it's a record circulation for that month. So yes, really coming out of post-COVID at this point, it's exciting. You know, the tough thing is, especially with Hoopla, is that it's a cost per use. And trying to manage that usage within the budget is a challenge, and we're going to have to continually watch that we become a victim of our own success in terms of budget impact. So we're continuing to watch that. But overall, numbers are up. It's exciting. Hard work by everyone in the selectors and managing their parts of the collection and ordering and getting things done.
Can you, so you just said that it's a cost per use for Hoopla. Is that
Correct.
like per item that is checked out or
Correct.
per person who signed up for it?
No, it's per item checked out. And each item has a varied price depending on how new it is and how popular it is. And
Okay.
we've been trending up per month for the last 4 or 5 months, and having to continually look at what we allow in terms of total number of checkouts per month per patron to kind of keep it within our ballpark. Again, and Hoopla is one of those that is only City of Fargo residents as well, because of that, the nature of its pay for use situation, but it's becoming more popular, and which is good, but it becomes more expensive on our end. So we're continually watching that.
I feel so guilty because I have checked things out on Hoopla before and not actually read them or listened to them. So I apologize for
Amy,
being that person.
you didn't have to say that out loud.
Just wanted to come clean so maybe other people feel guilty too before they check something out on Hoopla next time.
I have a
Okay.
question as a follow-up to that. Are those, Director Dirks, are those rates set statutorily? Are they market-driven? Is it an individual contract with our
It
library
is
system?
driven by the publishers.
Okay.
They, that whole, I mean, it's been an evolution of that with the publishers over the end. You know, ultimately, they control how those things are done. And the platforms have a little control, but primarily, if the platform's going to get any access to a publisher's catalog, they have to play along in terms of costs and what the publisher expect in terms of payment for these things. So yeah, that's the driver there.
Understood. Thank you.
Huh. That's very interesting. I didn't know any of this. That might be a follow-up conversation for a presentation later.
I have just the person
okay.
coming.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So we went through usage. We went through financials, right?
We didn't touch on financials yet.
No financials yet. We were just talking about how much money I'm wasting on Hoopla. Okay.
Yeah, but that's
Let's go to letter B.
tied to use. Sure, B. Just through January. You know, it's real early, but you can see how we're just getting started through January there. In terms of donations, we received, in terms on the revenue side, $34 from a Margaret Cairns. On the restricted side, $1,000 from the Friends for the Crafternoons. So thank you, Friends of the Fargo Public Library, for that. And also, the Friends donated $1,842 for Book Page. So thank you again, Friends, for that. And then on the expenditure side was the purchase of the Book Page. You can see that. And $47 expended for the Way to Go staff recognition and holiday pictures. So that's that. And then January revenue, you can see that at grand total of $3,015.37. That's the financials.
Okay. Any questions on the financial report? No. Okay, moving on to number 9. Is there anybody there for Friends of the Library?
Nobody here from the Friends. Thank you, Friends.
Okay. All right. Our next meeting is going to be March 19th, which is, I think, our regular meeting time. And that's it. Number 11, we are adjourned.